At 2 a.m., my phone rang and my parents were screaming, "Caitlyn, your brother is in the hospital in Aspen. Send $25,000 now." I paused, breathed, and said calmly, "No." For the first time in 32 years, I listened only to my own voice. Growing up, I was the eldest, the automatic provider, the family's safety net. I had always caved, always paid, always sacrificed. But that night, something shifted. The fear, the guilt, the obligation, they all fell away. I realized I mattered too. For as long as I can remember, my family treated me like an endless bank account. I was the eldest, the one expected to fund every whim, every misstep, every so-called opportunity my siblings pursued. I paid for Christopher's first car, the one he barely used responsibly. I covered Madison's first trip to Europe, a content creation adventure that yielded sponsored posts but never repaid the cost. I cleared their credit card debts more times than I could count, often with no acknowledgement, no gratitude, just another request waiting for my compliance. At the time, I believed this was what being a good sister meant, that this unending support was my duty. But looking back, I see how carefully orchestrated it all was. They weren't asking for help. They were conditioning me, reinforcing a pattern that made me feel obligated to give, fearful of refusal and guilty when I even considered it. This pattern has a name: the fog. Fear, obligation, and guilt. It's a psychological prison that keeps people compliant without overt threats. The fear was being cast out, labeled selfish or seen as ungrateful. Obligation was a story drilled into me from childhood that my success was never truly mine, but a shared resource for my family. And guilt, my mother's weapon of choice, could pierce me with a sigh, a carefully chosen word, or a glance that said without saying, "You owe us everything." I remember the pill of guilt she handed me whenever I bought a new couch instead of paying for Christopher's $5,000 gaming setup. It was perfect control, a system designed to make me internalize their needs as my own moral responsibility. This pattern continued for decades until I began to notice cracks. My mentor, Jessica, saw it from a mile away. One afternoon over lunch, my phone buzzed with a Venmo request from Madison for $900 labeled emergency skincare. I reached for it instinctively, my fingers hovering over my PIN, when Jessica's hand gently covered mine. "Caitlyn," she said, her voice firm but compassionate. "They're not asking anymore. They're just taking. You've taught them your well is bottomless." Her words hit like a jolt of electricity. The requests, the constant financial support, the unspoken expectation of compliance. It wasn't love or duty anymore. It was entitlement. That spreadsheet I had been keeping for years, initially a way to track my own budget, became a ledger of exploitation. $250,000 gone. College tuitions for degrees, never finished down payments for cars, repossessed bailouts for failed ventures. Christopher chasing startups that went nowhere, Madison producing influencer content that didn't recoup a fraction of the expenses. Every dollar I'd poured into them was reinforcing the pattern of control. Jessica's intervention crystallized the truth. My generosity had been weaponized against me. My compliance expected, my independence eroded. The realization was painful, but it was also liberating. I began to see the system for what it was, to recognize the manipulations that had been normalized over decades. Fear, obligation, guilt, they were tools to keep me subservient, and now finally I could name them. I could see the ledger of my life not as a testament to my love, but as a record of their calculated advantage. This growing awareness didn't come with anger or rebellion at first. It came with clarity. I understood the rules of the game, and I began to imagine a life where I no longer played by them. The tension had been building for weeks before that 2 a.m. call. Christopher announced in the family group chat that he and his wealthy friend Ryan were heading to Aspen for a so-called mental health weekend. Before I could even process it, Madison chimed in, insisting she was going too, framing it as a networking opportunity. My mother, with her practiced tone of concern, privately texted me, reminding me that my siblings deserve this, translating perfectly. To get your wallet ready. I ignored the message, hoping it was bluster. But a few days later, a photo appeared in the chat. The three of them, Christopher, Madison, and Ryan, stood before a private jet. Madison beaming in a caption that screamed entitlement, Aspen bound. So grateful for family who makes dreams come true. A cold dread settled in my chest. I knew my parents' finances. They didn't have private jet money. I knew exactly whose account was about to be drained. As soon as they landed, Madison's social media became a performance of obscene wealth. The trip wasn't about relaxation or bonding. It was a fantasy broadcast to 2 million followers. They checked into a 3-bedroom suite at the Little Nell with marble bathrooms, roaring fireplaces, and balconies overlooking snow-capped mountains. Her videos and photos painted a picture of a life funded by someone else's labor. That night, they dined at a private table in a nightclub. Sparklers atop bottles of champagne. Christopher tossing stacks of $100 bills into the air while Ryan laughed beside him. I watched from my couch in Denver, wrapped in a blanket, eating leftover chili while reviewing structural reports for a bridge project. The contrast was almost physical, a punch to the gut. The next day, Madison rented matching white Range Rovers, staged a ski suit photo shoot more expensive than my mortgage payment, and posted videos from Aspen Mountain laughing and clinking glasses as if the world were theirs. My phone buzzed with a screenshot from a college friend showing Madison holding a diamond tennis bracelet, and the same one I had mentioned wanting for my birthday. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just spending. It was a performance built on the assumption that I would pay. My dread shifted to clarity. This wasn't about family support or occasional generosity. This was a continuation of decades-long exploitation disguised as love and entitlement. I realized the 2 a.m. call wasn't a desperate plea. It was the culmination of a pattern designed to extract from me once again. The morning after my quiet refusal, chaos erupted in the digital world. Madison had gone nuclear, posting a 60-second tear-streaked video from what looked like a hospital waiting room. Her face, puffy voice, trembling with practiced outrage, she claimed my brother Christopher was lying in agony because I, Caitlyn Fletcher, had refused to send $25,000. She tagged my full name, my company, even my professional email, encouraging her millions of followers to berate me. Within minutes, my inbox was flooded. Work emails piled up with messages condemning me. Texts from strangers demanded justice, and social media DMs poured in, brimming with hate and assumptions. The old Caitlyn would have panicked, hyperventilated, reached for her wallet, called apologies into the void. But the new version of me didn't flinch. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, letting the storm rage around me while I methodically took control. I began blocking every unknown number that buzzed with vitriol, filtering work emails, with any mention of Sister Aspen or Monster straight to the trash. Social media went private, comments deactivated. Step by step, I created boundaries that the chaos couldn't penetrate. Each action, calm and deliberate, reinforced a sense of power I hadn't felt in decades. No longer was I reacting from fear, obligation, or guilt. I was observing, controlling, and containing. My professional world remained untouched, my personal life shielded. And with each block, each filter, each small click, I felt a shift in the way I perceived them. They weren't a family capable of love or concern. They were manipulators who had overestimated my compliance and underestimated my resolve. The flood of messages that would once have shattered me now barely registered. I had built a fortress around myself mentally and digitally. The storm still raged on the screens and in the chatter of the online world, but inside a chilling calm settled over me. The transformation was profound. Panic gave way to controlled resolve. Fear dissolved into clarity. I wasn't just protecting my money or my reputation. I was reclaiming my narrative. For the first time, I understood the true dynamic of my family. They had power over me, only when I let them, and now I wouldn't. The ground had shifted, and I was standing firmly on it, silent but unyielding, watching as their attempts to control me collapsed in real time. Late that Sunday afternoon, an unknown number with an Aspen area code flashed on my phone. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something nudged me to answer. A calm, professional male voice introduced himself, Officer Miller from the Aspen Police Department. He asked if I was Caitlyn Fletcher, then proceeded to explain the situation regarding my brother Christopher. I put the call on speaker, folding a towel, keeping my movements casual as if nothing could rattle me. The officer's words hit with a weight I hadn't anticipated. Christopher's so-called hospital emergency was a fabrication. He had been involved in a physical altercation at a casino, assaulting a floor manager. In the investigation that followed, they uncovered fraudulent activity, a fake driver's license, a forged line of credit application, and over $100,000 lost in casino markers. I froze for only a second, letting the details settle. Bail had been set at $50,000 cash, and he was now in custody, facing felony assault and felony fraud charges. As I continued folding laundry, a quiet understanding dawned on me. The moral high ground my family had always claimed, the guilt they wielded to control me, evaporated instantly. The fear and obligation they imposed weren't grounded in reality. They were lies designed to manipulate me. My parents weren't helpless or desperate. They were complicit. They had co-signed loans borrowed against their home and maintained a system that allowed this reckless behavior to flourish. Every request for money, every emergency claim had been another layer of control, another test of my compliance. I realized the decades of guilt, the pressure to fund cars, trips, and debts had been based on a false narrative. Folding towels, I felt a surge of clarity and moral relief. Their world wasn't one I needed to save. Their problems were their own, and for the first time I could watch from the periphery without internalizing blame. The entire construct that had defined my sense of duty and family loyalty collapsed. This wasn't a family drama anymore. It was a criminal case system that my parents couldn't manipulate with tears or public appeals, and I wasn't part of it. The revelation didn't spark panic or fear. Instead, a sense of liberation took hold, a calm reinforced by the knowledge that the fear and guilt I had carried were not reflections of reality, but tools of manipulation. My hands moved through the laundry with precision, each fold a quiet affirmation of autonomy. I understood now that I had been living under a carefully constructed fog, fear, obligation, guilt, and the foundations of that fog had crumbled. The moral authority they claimed was gone. The guilt they imposed was based on lies, and the power they wielded over me was finally nullified. In that moment, folding laundry became an act of meditation, reflection, and quiet triumph. I wasn't just observing my family's downfall. I was reclaiming the moral and emotional ground that had been denied to me for decades. The collapse of their manipulative control was complete, and I could finally see the truth clearly, unclouded by obligation or fear. After the call from Officer Miller, the lines between fear, guilt, and obligation dissolved. Not long after my father called from a blocked number, chaos spilled through the receiver. My mother wailing, my father panicked and pleading. They begged, explained, pleaded for $200,000, citing lawyer fees for the house, and rehab painting themselves as desperate, helpless parents. I listened, folding laundry with deliberate calm, the storm of emotion that would have once broken me reduced to background noise. Their words, stripped of authority, were just attempts to manipulate. My mother clutched the phone, shouting, claiming I couldn't abandon Christopher, that I had a duty, but the old rules no longer applied. I said simply, I can and I will. You created this monster. You can deal with him. Each syllable was measured firm, unyielding. They pressed further, playing their final card, the down payment on my condo. My father whispered, $40,000 we gave you that. Doesn't that count for anything? My chest tightened, not with guilt, but recognition. I had worked for that money, sacrificed for that foundation of independence, and they had manipulated it, used a loan in my name to cover their failures, presenting it as a gift. My past generosity, my achievements, my autonomy, they weren't respected. They were stolen. In that moment, the betrayal crystallized. The life I thought was mine, the independence I believed I had been compromised from the start. Yet, rather than despair, a profound clarity emerged. I understood the depth of their deception, the extent of control they had assumed over both my past and present. Ending the call, I blocked their numbers, severing their access and influence. The psychological weight lifted as I fully grasped that they were never interested in me as a daughter. They had only ever wanted a resource, a safety net to prop up their reckless choices. Establishing these boundaries wasn't cruel, it was self-preservation. The manipulation, the guilt, the incessant demands all ended with my decision to no longer participate. My independence, hard won and finally reclaimed, had a price: complete detachment. And in that detachment, I felt a strange peace, a finality that was as liberating as it was necessary. No longer was I tethered to their chaos. I was free to rebuild, to protect myself, and to assert that my life was no longer collateral for their recklessness. In the weeks that followed, I took deliberate steps to reclaim my life. I moved to a new apartment across town, a space that felt truly mind-stripped of the lingering influence of my family. I changed my phone number, closed accounts that connected me to their chaos, and created boundaries that were both digital and emotional. For the first time, every choice I made was guided solely by my own needs and priorities. 6 months later, I purchased my own home, the down payment entirely my own. a concrete symbol of independence and self-reliance. Each step was a small victory, a statement that I would no longer be a pawn in their schemes or a victim of their entitlement. This rebuilding wasn't just physical, it was deeply psychological. I learned that boundaries aren't acts of cruelty, they are acts of survival. I discovered the strength in saying no and prioritizing myself without shame or fear. Financial independence became more than numbers in a bank account. It was autonomy over my decisions, my time, and my emotional energy. I reflected often on the years of manipulation, the pattern of fear, obligation, and guilt that had dictated my choices. Recognizing it was empowering, but taking action to sever those chains was transformative. I felt a sense of relief so profound it was almost tangible, as though decades of tension and worry had evaporated overnight. My shoulders, which had been tight with the weight of unending responsibility, finally relaxed. Freedom isn't merely the absence of control from others. It's the presence of self-determination, the knowledge that your life belongs to you and no one else. The empowerment that came from this journey wasn't loud or boastful. It was quiet, firm, and deeply satisfying. I had broken free from the subtle tyranny of familial expectation and exploitation, proving to myself that my worth was not measured by the sacrifices I made for others, but by the courage to protect myself. Every decision, from moving apartments to purchasing a home with my own funds, reinforced the lesson that reclaiming your life requires both awareness and action. The silence that replaced the chaos left behind a space for reflection, growth, and joy. I finally understood that my freedom had a price. Yes, but it was worth every ounce of effort. Breaking away had granted me more than independence. It had given me clarity, resilience, and a renewed sense of self. I was no longer defined by the manipulation of my past, but by the deliberate, courageous steps I had taken to secure a future entirely my own. Caitlyn's journey reminds us that reclaiming your life often begins with a single quiet choice to put yourself first. Setting boundaries, asserting independence, and recognizing your own worth are acts of courage, especially after years of manipulation. Her story shows the power of self-preservation and the freedom that comes from refusing to be exploited. As you reflect on her resilience, consider the ways you can protect your own life, honor your choices, and embrace the empowerment that comes from standing firmly in your truth.